Welcome to this World Travel Update video, and today we're going to talk about the current situation in different parts of the world. We're going to talk about the Americas and also Southeast Asia. And there has been a lot of really positive things happening lately, some things that you've been waiting for. And some countries are open, some countries are about to open up, had some problems, closed. But I'm going to give you all the information that you need in this video. Before we get started, consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, and visas several times a week right now. And I also recommend that you grab a free copy of my ebook, How to Live a Life of Freedom During Challenging Times. First country that I wanted to talk with you about in this video is Mexico. Now, Mexico has undergone a pretty drastic immigration change over recent months, not really giving out 180-day tourist visas like the country did before, like immigration did before. If you come to Mexico now and you want to stay for 180 days, then I highly recommend that you apply for your visa prior to coming to the country, which can be done at the nearby consulate or embassy in your home country or the country where you're located at the moment. But for people that have been visiting Mexico multiple times over the past year or years, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult for you to get a decent visa, to get the 180 days. So what's more typical right now is that people get some random amount. They get maybe 9 days, 51 days, 60 days, 30 days, 80 days. If you haven't been in the country and you're going to tell the immigration officer, you know what, I want to stay for 70 or 80 days, and you can prove that, with a return ticket and also accommodation, you're going to be fine. For those traveling from Mexico to the United States, you're going to need a negative PCR test despite of your vaccination status. This doesn't apply to land borders yet. All right, let's jump to the other side of the world. Have a look at Thailand. Now, Thailand has been pretty open to not only fully vaccinated travelers, but also unvaccinated travelers. And here are the current conditions. If you are a fully vaccinated traveler, if you've been fully vaccinated with one of the approved vaccines that Thailand recognizes, then you can come to the country if you have taken a negative PCR test, if you have a negative PCR test done prior to departure, and you will also test negative upon arrival in Thailand. If this criteria is met, and obviously you also need to have health insurance covering COVID, if all this criteria is met, then you're gonna get into Thailand without quarantine. In case you're unvaccinated, you can still come to Thailand, but you need a negative PCR test, health insurance, another test upon arrival, and you also need a quarantine for 10 days at this moment in time. The good thing about Thailand is that the country allows both unvaccinated and vaccinated travelers to visit most places, but conditions apply. The Dominican Republic is another country that has been fairly open during the pandemic. And the good thing about the Dominican Republic is that you can enter the country. In most cases, people don't need to be vaccinated, don't need a negative PCR test if they travel to the hotel resort that they're staying in. Let's have a look at the Dominican Republic. Now, the Dominican Republic has a fairly relaxed visa system. What does that mean? Well, you can travel to the Dominican Republic on a tourist visa, which is for 30 days for most people. And once you're in the country, you can simply overstay legally, and upon your departure from the country, you just pay a fine at the airport. This is how it works. The Dominican Republic hasn't really changed its visa system because the country is greatly dependent on tourism, and I don't think they want to change it. So from a tourist visa perspective, unlike Mexico, the Dominican Republic is still fairly liberal. It's pretty easy for you to stay in the country, pay a fine legally, and not have any problems upon departure. From a COVID perspective, in order to travel to the Dominican Republic, you probably won't need a negative PCR test, no vaccination, even though there has been instances of people traveling from the United States to the Dominican Republic that were required to test upon arrival. This only happened on a few occasions, but there's no such requirement listed on any of the consulates or embassies' websites. The Philippines was about to open up, but the last-minute pullout was unexpected because a lot of people had already booked their vacation to the Philippines. They were already planning to spend this winter in the Philippines, but due to the new variant Omicron, they decided, you know what, we're gonna, be safe here. We're gonna not open up yet. They don't know when they're gonna open up, but from what I have heard is that there's gonna be a revision taking place. They're gonna take a look again. They're gonna reassess the situation of the new variant, which many scientists said, especially South African scientists, is actually very mild. People have very mild symptoms from this variant. So the Philippines, the Bureau of Immigration and the government should be coming out with an update later on this month, and hopefully, I really hope that the country is going to open up its borders soon. Now, the United States of America is the country that you can visit if you are from an EU country, if you're fully vaccinated. If you come, to the United States, there's no quarantine required, no further testing required upon arrival. Should you come from Mexico or Canada, you're also required to be fully vaccinated. And that is the situation in the United States right now. And as I already pointed out earlier on, in case you are a returning citizen or resident, then you need to get a negative PCR test done in order to enter the country. The United States has also opened its land borders with Mexico and also Canada, meaning you can cross again by car, assuming that you meet all the necessary requirements. Let's talk about Cambodia. Cambodia is a country that has had pretty good success with the vaccine rollout. It's actually been among the better countries in Asia when it comes to vaccination speed rollout. And right now, Cambodia is open to fully vaccinated travelers, no quarantine required, but you are required to present a negative PCR test prior to departure and get tested again upon arrival in the country. If the test upon arrival turns out to be negative, you are a free man, you are a free woman. You can go anywhere you want in Cambodia. In case you're unvaccinated, you can also come to the country, but you need to quarantine for 14 days, obviously at your own expense, and you need to deposit $2,000 into a bank account as security. Colombia is another country that has been really open since the pandemic. I mean, it's been closed just for very brief periods of time, but for the most part, Colombia has been the go-to place, or one of the go-to places for Westerners looking to escape the restrictions that are being put on them in the West. Now, if we take a look at Colombia, if you're fully vaccinated, no test is needed to enter. And if you're unvaccinated, then a test is needed. One of the key benefits of going to Colombia is definitely that you don't need to worry about the visa situation. If you want to spend a couple months in the country, if you're from a Western country, you get 90 days on arrival, and you can file your petition online to get a 90-day extension, which would allow you to stay a total of 180 days in the country, which in my opinion is a fairly liberal visa policy. And Colombia hasn't really changed its stance in recent days, despite the current situation, despite the pandemic, and despite the fact that many people can't go to Mexico anymore because they're only being given like 7 days, 30 days, 41 days, some weird numbers because they had a prolonged travel history in Mexico. A lot of those people are now coming to Colombia. They're coming to the Dominican Republic because those countries are not necessarily that restricted when it comes to allowing people to come in that have travel history. So Colombia is a great place. The weather is great. You have Bogota, Medellin, and also Cartagena. If you want tropical weather and beaches, then the Caribbean side of Colombia is probably where you want to be. If you want it cooler, then Medellin is definitely a good option. Pretty big expat community there. The last place that I wanted to talk with you about is a place that you probably don't expect. And that place is Australia. Now, why I want to point out Australia in this video is because the country was planning to open up to fully vaccinated travelers early on this month, but due to the new variant Omicron, they decided, you know what? We're going to take this with caution, we're not going to open up yet. And so you cannot get into Australia, but the opening has been paused until December 15, meaning that next week it's possible that you may be able to get into the country, assuming you are fully vaccinated and comply with all entry requirements that are set by the Australian government. I know that this new variant really slowed things down in certain places like the Philippines, Australia, and some other Asian countries too. A lot of you guys have been waiting to go to these places because they've been closed for such a long time. However, what I want for you, right? I want you to see this positive, because if you take a look at where a country like the Philippines was just half a year ago, they didn't allow anyone to come into the country, not even their own citizens, not even residents. It was just not an easy time for the country, and the government decided that they want to proceed like this. However, right now, just take a look at the positive incremental process that's happening in the Philippines, that they're allowing now vaccinated travelers to enter the country. And Now the vaccination rate is, I believe, 35-36%, which is definitely below average in the Southeast Asia region. Indonesia and the Philippines have the lowest vaccination rates, but they are now also speeding up this, especially in the cities. And there is a chance that if the vaccination target is reached in the cities, that they're going to open up to travelers. You know, I think first they're going to open up to fully vaccinated travelers, and then once they see, you know, things are working out pretty well, there's a chance, okay, I cannot guarantee this, but there is a chance that there could open up to unvaccinated travelers, assuming you have a negative PCR test, are willing to quarantine, and possibly in the future they will allow unvaccinated travelers with just a negative PCR test to enter the country. But I'm just telling you, you know, you can observe other countries, how they have gone about it. For instance, Thailand, greatly dependent on tourism. I know the Philippines is not dependent on tourism as much as Thailand. Even Cambodia is now letting people in that are unvaccinated, but they need a quarantine. So if you should decide not to get vaccinated for whatever reason, and I totally respect that, and a lot of you know my opinion on the subject, and each to their own. You make your own decisions when it comes to this subject, and I make my own decisions. Another person makes her own decisions. But if you want to get into these places, just be patient for a bit longer, because they are going to open up. I'm pretty sure they are going to open up. And the good thing about the new COVID variants is that they are milder, which is positive, You know, if there's fewer hospitalizations, if there's fewer deaths, that is all positive. This is not something to freak out, despite of the media making it look so much worse than it actually is. And what I'd advise is to not watch too much news on it, you know, so you can keep a positive mindset and just look forward to the moment when a place like the Philippines and Vietnam are going to be fully open, because it's going to be an awesome time again. Where are you located in the world these days? What are your plans for the next coming months? Where are you heading next? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new content on travel updates and visa situations around the world. You're invited to grab a free copy of my ebook, How to Retain a Life of Freedom During Challenging Times. And if you got some more time left, feel free to check out these videos. Thank you for watching.